There you go. All right, we're recording. Welcome everybody to another episode of Authorsphere. I'm your host, Dan Alatorre, and joining me today is TikTok sensation and author Maranda Collins. Maranda, welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I say TikTok sensation because that's how I discovered you. How long have you been on TikTok?
About a year, and I will admit that I was not super familiar with the platform. Had to have my 22-year-old daughter get me set up and start me with an account, and I recorded a few awkward videos in the beginning. And I think when it really struck me what I should be doing, I started engaging more in the platform, realizing what content the algorithm's looking for, but more importantly, engaging with people. That's what TikTok's about, is finding a way for people to engage. I've had fun finding some other thriller authors on TikTok.
Right.
I enjoyed interacting with the fans of the thriller genre. I get some book recommendations that way. I love
lots of those. Well, there's no shortage of people talking about books to read on TikTok.
Exactly. In fact, I used to get my recommendations, and I still do, some from Facebook and from friends, but I get talked into buying books all the time on TikTok. Somebody will, do their top 5 thrillers of the last year. And of course, there might be something on there I haven't read yet. I'm like, oh, I need to add that to my list. Of course, my to be read pile is like 200 books tall at this point.
Everybody's in it, right? That was actually one of the things I want to do. There are so many, well, it could be that this is because of the stuff I look at, but there are so many people who come on and just talk about a book they just read and how many stars they're giving it. And they're wildly popular, right? And so I started on TikTok a year ago, August. I didn't do anything until like January of this year. I think those dates are right. And so I was just like watching, seeing what it's all about. And then I started trying to engage. And like you said, your early videos, you don't necessarily know what you're doing. And then I had a few that kind of clicked. The biggest thing I enjoy about yours, you bring a lot of energy. You seem like you're having fun doing it. And I find that when I do that, which I don't always do, those videos do better. Like today I put one out and it was like, it's so funny. I'm sitting, this is the backdrop, right? As I'm doing this video today. And I'm just talking about an aspect of writing that I don't know that most people care about, but I think readers might appreciate. This is how this little dynamic works, right? And it was one of those weird things where it's like, I didn't want to talk too loud. I didn't want to bother the other people in the house. It was just me. I think my wife's here, but I was talking quiet. It wasn't a lot of energy. It was really the total opposite probably of what you're supposed to do if you want the video to be watchable. But, and I only realized that after I'm done with it. I'm like, upstairs doing something else. I'm like, you know what? There's no energy. There's no enthusiasm in that thing. Nobody's going to watch it. And why did you do that? You know better, but yours are just the opposite. Yours are upbeat, entertaining, engaging.
Thank you. And I've decided I'm not going to just post for posting's sake. You read some of the advice out there that says to appease the algorithm, you should be posting twice a day. My life is not conducive to that type of posting schedule. And I figure if I did that, it would be boring and I would be bringing content that wouldn't interest anybody. So when inspiration strikes me, I just shoot a video. And I think any social media platform should be fun. And when it loses its appeal, it's no longer fun. It's a chore. It's a burden. People sense that. And I think there's no point in just doing it for the sake of doing it.
I think just like you, like, I hate to say when the mood strikes me because I understand it's, a business aspect. We have to post periodically. So my thing was I didn't want to get on here and post a bunch of videos about how to write a book. There are people being wildly successful doing that. It's just not what I wanted to do. I thought it'd be fun to talk about the common interview questions you get as an author when you're in an interview, where your ideas come from, how do you create a serial killer, the mindset of a serial killer, just stuff like that. Things but a different take on it, which is like as I'm out for my morning jog, I was like, oh, this thing looks interesting. And an author would view it as this, right? Like beautiful pasture. It's like, that's where the bodies are buried. Where everybody else just walks by and says, beautiful pasture. So, and they're funny. They're not super high energy, but they're short and hopefully, entertaining. But the flip side of that is every once in a while I do what I did today, which is like, I was watching a Pixar movie, I guess we rented it or something on TV with my daughter. And Pixar is really good at striking your emotional chords, right? So I was misting up a little bit. Now, of course, in my head, what I'm thinking about this is, wow, someday my daughter's going to grow. She's 12. one day she's going to grow up and leave me and how sad that's going to be. And it was just like a little moment in the thing. So she looks over at me, she teased me, "Are you crying?" Well, a couple years earlier when we watched it, she was crying. And I just sit there and say, it's an array of colored dots, maybe not even sound per se. And that can get you emotionally wound up to the point where you have an emotional reaction. And we do it in our books too. We try to. It's engaging. It strikes that chord. But so that was my little analysis thing there. But it's like, I don't know how entertaining it was.
Pixar is the master at hitting at the heart of emotion.
They really are. They really are. There's even, you can go online. It's like how Pixar does it. First you do this, then this, then this. So it's pretty neat.
It's really interesting to listen to their creative process. They have a really creative environment. I've read some about what their workspace is like, and it sounds like the most fun place to work in the world. So,
as opposed to us, where we sit alone and toil away by ourselves.
Yes, sitting behind our computer, typing away, trying to come up with wildly imaginative things. I do get out and I'll drive or ride or go for a walk to spark creativity, because I do think it can be draining to sit in front of a computer and watch the blinking cursor.
I think it's like anything else. I don't know if it's like I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive, probably, but it's like when I'm in the mood to do a TikTok video, it's like that day or that weekend, I'll think of 10 TikTok videos. And then I'll go a week where I don't have a good idea for any of them. The same thing, but there'll be weeks or days on end that string into weeks where it's just like I'm just logging bunches of hours behind the keyboard. And then there'll be other times where it's like it seems like, it's probably not true, but it seems like I don't touch a story or the next story or whatever for like a month or more than a month. I figured out if that's healthy regeneration or just plain laziness.
I give enough to it that I can still dedicate myself to writing, because I think as an author, we can spend so much time promoting and interacting on TikTok and Facebook and putting out our newsletter. And we need to be doing those things. We need to be interacting with our fans and being genuine, but you can get bogged down in that. And then you miss out on your writing time. And then I go to bed at night just feeling guilty. I think, well, man, I didn't make any progress on that. I did this, and this in my author career, but did I really do anything with my writing? And so you can get bogged down with that.
It's a balance I don't pretend to have achieved. Like I'm really good at sitting down and cranking out. If I didn't have to market or anything, I could crank out all kinds of stories all day long, all year long.
Absolutely.
Add in the marketing element. I was trying to explain this to somebody the other day. It's like, why? Well, first of all, most authors don't like marketing. Writing a story is typically a solo venture, although we certainly can interact. We can talk to other authors this way and stuff. But the actual sitting down writing it tends to primarily be a solo act. And people who prefer that tend to not be the outgoing types who are good at marketing. So there's certainly that. But for me, it's like I don't mind doing the marketing stuff when I see a positive result coming back. With a lot of marketing, it's eventually there will be a payoff, or sometimes you guess wrong and there is no payoff and you learn something. That's the part that drains me, where I sit there and I look at the money I'm spending on the marketing. I'm like, oh gosh, do I pull the plug on this thing? Do I let it keep going?
Yep.
And it's so, and again, who are you going to talk to about this? Nobody else cares. So, or necessarily understands. So it's like, all right, I'm just going to not look at it for a week, and then maybe I can focus. In the back of my head, it's like, hey, how's that ad doing? You should be looking. You're spending money. So it's, I find it emotionally draining to where it's such a distraction. It really takes me away from writing. Like I do the marketing crap, and even if it's only like 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours of it, by the time I'm done with that, I don't feel like writing anything. I don't feel like being in front of a computer. I feel like going out inventing, or drinking heavily, or so.
Well, I watch others that I think are doing it very well, and then you start comparing yourself. I have a friend who's putting out 2 newsletters a week, and I said, Annie, how do you manage to do that? I said, I'm not feeling good about myself and my newsletter schedule now that I've heard yours. And she said, well, I enjoy doing it. I said, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. I mean, it's something she enjoys, and she's got it figured out where she can just spin out a little something quickly. And that's what she's put her time and effort into. And I thought, well, that makes sense. I can't put out a newsletter twice a week and do TikToks twice a day and do a Facebook post every day and an Instagram post and write. So
I cheat. I take TikTok is fun. it's addictive and it's fun. If you have a fun idea, it's neat to add in little stickers and this, that, and the other. And each time I do it, I learn something, right? So it's primarily fun, although it can be a chore. But I take that TikTok and then I post the same thing everywhere. I post it on Instagram and
Me
YouTube.
too.
And you're not supposed to do that, but I figured, okay, let's suppose you discover me somehow on not TikTok. Let's just say YouTube. For whatever reason, you were on YouTube doing something and you saw my thing and you clicked on it, and it's going to show you right there, hey, this is a TikTok video.
Right.
It's like, okay, you either liked it. Here's my rationale. You either liked it or you didn't. If you liked it and you want to see more, it's telling you right where to go. Right?
Exactly.
TikTok, go to TikTok. If you're not on TikTok, it's not going to do me any good. Stay on YouTube. Eventually, there'll be another one there for you.
Yep.
That's
I
my
absolutely
rationale.
repurpose mine. Yes, I'm all about repurposing them.
The only
So
thing is
you
it's got
never.
that watermark on it, so it doesn't get shown around as much, you know.
Well, they say there's some software out there you can pull that off. I need to look into that, where you can record it in TikTok, use all their bells and whistles, and then there's some way to pull that off. I need to look into that. I don't know if that's
Watermark.
a software. Yeah, I don't know if there's.
What you do is you just put a little sticker over it that says Thriller, right? A little starburst sticker. And then it starts out, let's see, I got to do this backwards. I think it starts out over here and then it moves down over here, right? So you just Thriller, and then when it moves, you just move Thriller. I did that once. I was like, man, that's lame. I'm just gonna let everybody know it's TikTok and come here. This is where you'll get the most current stuff. But like the one I made today, and then I spend like 5 minutes, post a YouTube, Instagram, blah blah blah, Facebook, then it's out there. And again, my rationale is, could I do unique content for each one of those? Well, then it's more of a chore. There's probably gonna be less content, but at least there is content there. So if you went to me on YouTube, you'll find a bunch of my TikTok videos that I've posted there. Do whatever you want with that. But
right.
Each platform promotes the stuff that was created on their platform. So it's not getting the exposure, I guess.
Well, we joke that I should have 2 TikTok managers. So my daughter's the technical manager of TikTok. She understands all the bells and whistles and how you use things. And my husband is surprisingly creative with content ideas. He'll just say, hey, you thought about, or maybe you should. And the one day we were in the grocery store and I was in a hurry for something, and we were up at the register and I forgot. So I ran back to get something. I'm racing up there. Well, he's videoing me as I'm racing back up there to check out. And later I said, what are you going to do with that video? And he said, well, you said you're going to post it on TikTok and say that's you racing back to get to your writing. I said, oh, smart.
Yeah.
Like I would have never been considered that to be a possibility.
Who videoed you at your book signing? And it's just like a swinging camera view of like your sign or whatever, and you're sitting there autographing, and then it kind of comes around to you. Who did that?
Isn't that a great? My friend Dawn did that. She's actually in a marketing role in her job, and she's the master. She has an eye for shooting the video, imagining the video. She did a great job with that. She's had some videos that went viral in her former job because she's smart with that. So that was fun. She came to the signing and said,
things where it looks very simple. You could have been a 5-year-old doing it, except it didn't look like a 5-year-old did it. It looked like somebody professionally did it. And it's just the simplest of things. You're just sitting there and then you just kind of swings around. It's like when it comes to book covers, I'm terrible at picking book covers. If I take 3 book covers, one that's recommended by an author friend, one that's recommended by my cover designer, and one that I like, and send them out in a newsletter. The one that I like is always the one that never gets chosen. The other 2, obviously the cover designer is going to get the most votes. He knows what he's doing. And my author friend will get more votes than me. And the one I like, no votes. They're like, whatever you do, don't use that one. It's like, yeah, that's the one I like. So it's just, I don't have an eye for that. And I suppose I could learn to have that eye, or at least appreciate where that comes from. Like I appreciate it, but I just don't have that eye. And when I saw that, I'm like, so simple, so effective, but it conveys a lot quickly, but it looks very elegant, very professionally done, without being overproduced, kind of thing.
Exactly.
And you have a bunch of things that look like that.
Yeah, that's something that I've been working on, and I think that's important. They have to look somewhat professional, but still casual enough. Yes. Because I've seen some where people get so professional that TikTok doesn't love something that's produced. They want it to look
the horror stories. There's a guy who said I spent 2 hours doing one video. It was whatever, 30 seconds long. And then the next one I did was just boom, me sitting in a lawn chair, blah, blah, blah. Both of them 30 seconds long. One got 100,000 views. The one that I spent 2 hours doing got, 500 views. And it's just one of those things where it's like, well, why is that? And there's just the simpleness of it, but I think the candor,
Authenticity.
authenticity, yes,
Yep.
is more. And in this particular meeting, there may be another one where maybe YouTube needs that overproduced or more produced look. But I think TikTok appreciates the authenticity and the simplicity. And you straddle both those lanes very well, I think, on your TikToks. They're very watchable. They get to the point. They're fun. So let me ask you a question. So tell me a little about your author journey. What caused you to get into the world of pain and suffering that we know as being an author?
Well, I had no choice because these stories have been burning holes in my brain my whole life. And my husband and I own very busy ag businesses, and we have 2 children. Once I got the youngest off to college, I decided to get serious about my writing because I love it. It's something I've always wanted to do. Got my kids shipped off to college, finished writing my first book, which is On the Run, a Sadie Lynch novel, a thriller book. I've enjoyed that so much. I just finished book 2 in the series. I need to get that cleaned up and ready for publication.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I don't see it on pre-order on Amazon.
Yep. So I hope to have that out by the end of the year. And then as soon as I finished book 2, I knew immediately where book 3 was going, and I just sat down and wrote the 5 lines of book 3. So it's for sure going to be a trilogy, potentially more. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, well, how long do you think the Sadie Lynch series will be? And I said, until it's no longer fresh, because I know you've seen it. There's an author who writes an incredible series and it just drags out too long and you get bored. It's maybe the same story. And, after about book 12 or book 15, it all starts to sound the same and you give up on it. I don't want it. I like these characters so much that I don't want to run it into the ground. I always think about the quarterback, in the NFL that maybe should retire 2 or 3 years before, and everybody would have remembered him in their glory, but they drag it out too long. And I don't want to do that to the series. So potentially, I definitely have 3 because the third one I've started it, potentially more. I'm also working on another one in a completely different genre. I wish I could tell you that I'm great with linear work, that I could do the first Sadie book, the second Sadie book, the third, and everything just comes in order the way it's supposed to. Like I told you, I have these stories burning holes in my brain. So I'm working on a rom-com that I'm trying to get out for a Valentine's Day release. But that works for me because if I get stuck on my thriller series, rather than sit and look at a blank screen or get frustrated with lack of productivity, I'll just switch over and work on a completely different story, completely different genre. I'll get moving there. And often when I switch back, no problem picking back up on the other one. And I've worked through the block. So I'm moving around in terms of genres.
I'm nervous to try to do that just because I'm afraid I'll bring this character's mannerisms and start putting them on this character in a different story.
And they tell you as an author to be careful with that. They talk about how that can be dangerous to switch between genres. I've seen people do it successfully. I mean, Colleen Hoover has written in a variety of genres, and obviously she's doing well with bestsellers. I think it's just really important as an author that we make it clear, hey, this next one is a rom-com, totally different feel, totally different genre. As long as you don't confuse your readers, I wouldn't want somebody who loved the thriller, Sadie Lynch type, fast-paced, on-the-run type series to pick this other one up and think, well, that's not what I was looking for. So I think that's one thing we have to be careful about, is setting the expectation that it's going to be a totally different story.
When I started into this, I thought readers are astute enough to realize, a romance cover looks a certain way, and even if it didn't, the description is going to tell you it's a different story from a shoot 'em up Western, from a space odyssey or whatever. And everybody was like, no, do that under a different pen name, change it up. And I was like, So I think when you said you have a marketing background, it's kind of like when you do the marketing, you're targeting romance readers. You're not targeting mystery, suspense, thriller. And that right there is going to split it up. Now, Stephen King writes a bunch of horror stuff, wrote Shawshank Redemption, wrote, The Body, which became the movie Stand By Me. Definitely not horror stories, but he was able to do it. And we can talk a lot about people who were able to do it. My guess is most people can't do it. So maybe most people fail, and to look at the successes is the wrong way to do it. But on the other hand, it's like you need more than one book out there. You need to be seen by more than one person.
Mhm.
Marketing will drive who gets to your site. They're not going to find it by osmosis these days. There's too many choices out there. So, and besides that, you may find that the rom-com takes off and there's so much positive feedback that you want to write 5 more rom-coms next year, and and Sadie's adventures can wait a few more months.
Well, it makes sense for me to write them because I also read in those genres. So I think it's a mistake when somebody decides to write in a different genre. They don't even read in that genre and don't understand the expectations and the tropes.
The expectations are a big deal.
They are. I read thrillers. I read rom-coms. I read historical fiction. I read in a variety of genres. And so I feel comfortable writing in those. And, something's, I'm excited about this project that I have for February, the rom-com. It is a comedy, but it also handles a pretty serious subject. My protagonist needs to learn some balance in her life and get her priorities straight. And she learns the lessons from her grandma in the nursing home. And so that's a heavy topic in itself. Grandma's got dementia. And so that's something that's actually close to my heart. That's been an issue in my family. And so that's kind of a passion project for me. It's something I feel really strongly about. And I think that one's going to be good for me. And I'm not going to disappoint my Sadie fans. I will get the books out because people are really enjoying that. And locally, my husband is ready for book 2 to be out because anymore we'll go to the restaurants or we'll go to the grocery store and inevitably somebody stops and says, "Hey, where's book 2?" And
That's a good problem to have.
And he says, "When is book 2 going to be done?"
Well, you said by the end of the year. So do you have a
Yes.
date for it? Because like I said, I didn't see it on Amazon with a pre-order or anything. Or at least I don't think
Yes,
so.
I need to get my pre-order up. So I'm in the process of cleaning it up now. It's with beta readers right now. I've got to get brave and just stick the pre-order up there. So
It all depends. Some people, like I would put, when I put out, say, book 2, before I even had an idea what book 3 was going to be, I'd buy a cover, I'd put up there so that in the back of book 2 was a link. Hey, did you enjoy this? Pre-order book 3, right? And then it would push out a year with the idea that if I got it all done in 6 months, I can just move the date up. Everybody's happy. The problem is I always end up writing some other project in between. I'm like, oh, I got that pre-order I'm supposed to be working on. And then it's tick tock. But I think since it's with betas, you're probably safe now to go ahead and pre-order.
Well, and those are good things. Deadlines help me. So
well, and so there you go. What if you said by the end of the year, are you going to put it out before Christmas or before New Year's, or
yes, I would
an
like
idea
to.
of what's better?
Yeah, I've had a few people say, "Hey, if you get book 2 done, I have several people I want to gift that to for Christmas." So that's a good goal.
So before Christmas, they got time to do it. Well, see, now remember, in order for them, if they're going to gift it, they got to have it a week before Christmas, maybe. So you don't have the 25th. Now you're back to the 15th, maybe, or something.
I should have had this conversation with you 2 months ago, so you could have kicked me in the pants then. So
I don't know if it would have helped. But look, it's only October, so
Yeah.
the one thing you certainly can do, you can put it out there on December 31st, and if it's ready on the 15th, you just move it up and release it then. Nobody's unhappy with that, getting it soon, right? So, and then you get to see what kind of interest level is being driven. And like I always do in the back of the first Sadie book, you put a link for the second one. And that, I don't need to tell you all that part.
I think I'm missing the book. I'm figuring that out as I go. So
well, so in my first couple of books, I didn't do that. And then because I wasn't really developing series with them. And then, it's like anything else. You find out somebody says, hey, if you put the link, because what they said was the most valuable real estate in your book is right after the story ends, that little white space. That's and where I got the idea, where it solidified the idea for me was we were watching like an old James Bond movie, like Live and Let Die or something. And at the very end, it goes, James Bond will return in, not Goldfinger, but whatever it was that came after Live and Let Die, Moonraker or something, right? And I was like, that's what those guys are telling me to do with them. Look, freaking, they didn't think of it. Ian Fleming been doing it for 60 years. Maybe I should do what the successful people are doing, Not a little bit. But it also then does start, the timer's then running on that when you do it.
Right.
I don't know if I do it right away. Oh, I do. That is what I do. But I'm not going to do it anymore because as much as I like having the pre-order out there and potentially getting whoever's interested as soon as they're done with the book, I think I'd rather wait until the book is done, like you are, with betas, and then set it up. There's a little less pressure that way.
Like I was telling you, we run these ag businesses and we stay so busy. And I think there's always that fear in the back of my mind that I won't be able to deliver, on a promise that I've made if I've told people when it would be out. And so I think getting it mostly done, I felt really confident that now I'm at a point where no matter what happens, I'm getting this thing published.
I know what you mean. It's like in sales or marketing or anything else, to promise something and not deliver on it is death, especially these days. So but again, there's a point in the process where it's like, all right, I'm done with it. I felt comfortable enough with it to send it to betas. Yeah, you're probably not 90 days away from a finished product. So
right.
set a pre-order date for 90 days.
Our business mantra has always been deliver on your promises or die trying. And so I always want to make sure I can do that. I think that's why I waited until I was sure I was going to get this thing done.
Yeah, some people wait too long, and then there's other people who put it out there and like, I'll hit that target, no worries. It's like, holy cow, how do you do that?
And they have an ulcer in the time.
It could be, or they just, things just never happen. I'm the kind of guy who it's like, if it's 10 minutes to the park, I feel like we need to leave 20 minutes early in case there's traffic jam, and to make my daughter's ball game. And my wife's the type who's like, we'll leave, at game time and somehow miraculously make it before the first pitch comes out. And I'm like, that's not how my world works. There'll be something that would happen to me that would prevent that part. But then my daughter and I are sitting there 10 minutes early. She's like, Dad, why are we here so early? Well, just in case, honey. That's So,
yes,
I was started to do a little bit about your writing journey. So you said the stories were burning in you, got your kids off to college, and but a lot of people do that, want to write stories and don't. What got you to finally push the button, and how long did it take you to write the first Sadie story?
So it took me about 7 months to write it, and then I got cold feet. It was just living in my computer. My mom finally pushed me into doing something with it. She said, "That's an incredible story." She said, "Is that just going to live in your computer for eternity?" And so my mom pushed me into getting this out.
Good job, Mom.
She's a great supporter. She's my biggest fan. She's the reason I wrote that story because that is right up her alley. My mom is dyslexic and struggled through school, actually dropped out when she was in high school, but dedicated herself to learning to read, taught herself to read later in life, and now she reads a lot. Now it takes her a long time, and she needs fast-paced, engaging reads that you don't waste 50 pages setting up a story because her dyslexic brain just doesn't work that way. So I wrote this.
All readers are that way. Nobody wants, and no offense, but again, to refer to movies, stuff like Remains of the Day, where they just take forever to do anything, and it's a slow-paced British thing, and it's all full of angst and pain. And it's like, yeah, the Academy Awards love it, but honestly, those things they're a chore. And what we write is not required reading. It's fun time.
Right.
We're competing with TikTok and a bunch of other stuff for that reader. So I feel like you gotta start with a bang and keep it rolling.
Yes. Well, it turns out she likes it, and so do a lot of people. Okay. And so that has been incredible to me. I submitted on the run for the Adventure Writers Competition, which is sponsored by the Clive Cussler family. And I was so very.
I saw Cussler on there, but I didn't know. I assumed maybe there was some relation. I didn't know it was his family.
They sponsor the award, and so I actually.
You got your award. Let's see it right there.
Went to Las Vegas, met Dirk Cussler. He handed me this trophy. I got to visit with him, met several of the Cussler co-authors. It was an incredible experience. I was interacting all weekend with accomplished writers. They were so welcoming and supportive. I had a wonderful time. And so there's enough adventure in that it made it to the point of getting a trophy in Las Vegas. So I enjoyed.
How does something like that come about? Are you just selected out of the ether? Is it something you need to apply for? Is it genre? I guess that one's genre specific.
Yep. So I saw that the contest was out there. I submitted for that, and they said that it's an international competition. I believe they said they had entries from 11 different countries, and so they narrow from, the big pool, and then they notified me, hey, you're a semifinalist, and I was like, cool, I love that, that's great. I was elated when I got the email that said, "Hey, you're a finalist. You should come to Vegas and meet us and get your trophy and your little cash prize and hang
Oh,
out
there
with
was a
Dirk
cash prize
Cussler."
too? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh, very
it
cool.
it was incredible. And the cash prize is great. The trophy's awesome. I'm, touring it around for my family and friends to see it. I'll proudly display it on my desk. But the value in this has been the people. I mean, I was hanging out with some New York Times bestselling authors. I was visiting with one, and I have to admit, I'm a little ashamed of this, but we were at the elevator and we had a nice chat. And then the next day they introduced him to come up and give a presentation. And I said, "Oh, I talked to him yesterday. I didn't put that together." So that was that was fun for me to hang out with some people. And they were genuinely welcoming, and I just really enjoyed it. The other finalists are super good guys, incredibly talented writers, and it's an honor to be recognized. The Cusslers have been so very successful in
Yeah.
adventure writing. Just to be associated with that group of people was amazing for me.
Well, when I saw that you were, let me think. So I think you were nominated. You hadn't gone to Vegas yet,
Right.
right? You didn't know you won, or did you know? I think you were nominated, or you found out you were a semifinalist or something.
Right.
You did some kind of announcement about that. And at that point, I didn't know that. I don't think I knew that it was the Cussler family involved in it, right? It was
Mhm.
more this genre. At least that was my take on it. Maybe didn't pay that
Right.
attention, right? So then I see later, I see that name, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's, probably is, but maybe not the Cussler family or Clive Cussler or whatever it would be. And then, so what was where do they have this thing? Is it in a big giant ballroom? How many people are, it's like,
Yeah.
like the Academy Awards where there's a stage and a bunch of tables. What's the deal there?
What's cool about it is they give the awards for the Adventure Writers competition, and it's actually my award is the Clive Cussler Grand Master Award. So they give these awards, but it's at the same time as the Clive Cussler Collectors Convention Society, and so you've got a lot of fans there
Yeah,
of
smart.
Cusslers and the Cussler co-writers, and that's fun because you're there interacting with the authors, but you're also there interacting with readers who just really have loved the Cusslers over the years. And they do a fun auction at the end of the night, where they're auctioning off, things that were signed by Clive, or, replicas of some of the cars. He has an incredible car museum in Colorado, and, coffee mugs and, rare finds from his past. And they are a great group of people. And some of them were judges in this competition. So that was very cool for people who love the Cusslers, to approach me and say, "Hey, I read On the Run." They said, "That's great. We can't wait for book two." And that was a really wonderful experience.
Well, how did you know whether or not it would be worth your while to go to Vegas? I mean, you don't live in Vegas, I don't think. So, you're getting on a plane, you're traveling, spending money on a hotel.
So the director of the Adventure Writers competition is Peter Green. And Peter and I communicated back and forth, and he said, "Trust me, Miranda, if you can get away,
Little
you need."
nudge. Hey, you should probably be here.
Yes. He said, "We can send you the trophy and the cash prize, but," he said, "it would really be to your benefit to come out here and meet these people." And he's right. I mean, I already can tell I'm going to have friends from this, and, you know, incredible opportunities to interact with people who have been down the publishing road and have had some success in marketing. And I can already tell that I'm going to be interacting. I might even go back to their convention again next year just because I enjoyed those people. I think it's in Denver next year. And I live in Kansas. And so that's actually drivable for me. And I'm thinking, I just want to go hang out with these people again because I like them. So
Well, it's a different group of people too. Like I've gone to conferences that were, in Florida here, well attended, but it's mostly novices or people who are just starting out, or it's geared towards here's how to get into this industry kind of thing. And then I've gone to other ones where it's like you had to have a minimum sales volume over the prior 12 months or something to be able to join this group, and then you have to be a member of the group to come to the conference. And they're just catering to a different group, let's say, right? But I've never been to an award ceremony, past high school swim team or something, right? So I've never been to an award ceremony where it's been a bunch of other authors. So that is yet again a different aura to that thing. How many,
It
how
is.
many people are there? So you knew before you got on the plane that you had won the prize, or
Yes, I knew I was a finalist, that I was getting a cash prize, and that I was getting the trophy.
but you didn't know
And
you won? You knew you were a finalist, but you didn't know you. I mean, does that make sense? There are other finalists who didn't
yeah,
win, right?
yeah, yes. So I technically was the runner up. That's my, maybe I was the runner up with the Grandmaster Award. So, but everybody who was a finalist was getting a trophy and a cash prize. There were three of us.
Okay.
So, and they announced that night the Grandmaster was actually Dave Schultz, who wrote Tops, and great guy. So for me, being there and hanging out was the prize in itself. You know what I mean? Getting to meet those people.
You gonna
And
name drop at all? You gonna tell us some of the people you got to have a conversation
yes,
with?
so yep, I hung out with Graham Brown and Jack DeBraw, Dirk Cussler.
And these are people you can just, give a text, hey, bro, what's going on?
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Very cool.
So that was really cool. Graham Brown actually took a copy of my book home to read. So
that's always nice.
at the end of the night, he said, Miranda, he said, I should get a copy of your book. And he purchased one and he took it with him. And so that's very cool.
That's hard to beat.
Yeah,
So,
Mike Madden was there. He's new to the Cussler co-writing. And so I got to hang out with him and really enjoyed. He gave me some very encouraging words about sticking with it and making this happen. And he's actually someone else. So he's told me this, and then another friend who's been very successful with his memoir said, hustle. A lot of the writing game is about hustle. So you have to write a decent story and then hustle to get it in front of everyone. So
well, I imagine hustle means different things. Like if you're going to write one book, you need to have 2 and 3 for there to be some traction,
right.
or realistic traction where where marketing is, you can see the marketing coming back to you, the money spent coming back to you as profits or whatever. A lot of people told me it's like, I would write one book in one genre and another book in another genre, and you're like, that's good, but that's a harder way to go. If you write a series, the series will have more opportunities. It seems to be true, but I think you mentioned several times you have a marketing background, you and your husband. I gotta believe that helps in your perspective on, because so it's not that I don't know about marketing from other businesses I've been able to do, but I wasn't the marketer per se. Whereas in this business, and people probably don't know, if you're traditionally published or independently published, the author is still doing a lot of that legwork. It's not like in the old days where, Brown or whoever was, putting it out and taking care of all that for you. The author has to do a lot of it. So how does that background, do you think that background affects your perspective on things?
It does. And, I promote in a variety of ways. So we've mentioned all the social media aspects, but I take advantage of all the in-person signing events. Since the world opened back up again, I'll go to a public library and do signings. I'll go to bookstores and do signings. I actually did one in Joplin, Missouri. The bookstore owner over there is incredible. He has hosted 500 book signings for local authors. Super nice guy. That was a fun event for me. And as people were walking in the door, he'd grab them and say, "Hey, Miranda's our local author. Come on over here," and introduce me. And
that's a bookstore owner who gets it. I've been in local bookstores where I had to be that person saying, "Hey, come on over here and check out this," and be like me and one other person, like, check out this stuff. But with most authors, that extra step of extroversion is what they don't have. I don't say most authors, maybe not most successful authors, although certainly a lot of successful authors are introverts. But it's like that extra thing. Well, what everybody hopes is the bookstore owner is going to be hustling people in the door and marketing the thing to get them over to you.
It was incredible.
Usually the case. So this guy was great. Usually you're the one who has to do it. Most authors don't know that. Most authors don't do that. So their book signing is a very quiet, not so great event.
Yeah. I'm going back to Vegas in November, and November 18th is the Rave event. There will be over 300 authors at this event, and they're expecting thousands of readers to come to that. And so that's the Readers and Authors Vegas event that'll be taking place in Bally's. And I'm excited about that because there's going to be thousands of readers in the door, and they'll be drawn for maybe other authors that happen by your table. And so I just, I'm going out there for a conference anyway, and they said, "Hey, while you're here, if you have any interest in doing the book signing," absolutely. So I'm going to lug a bunch of books out to Vegas. And
what's the conference you're going out for?
It's $20 to $50K.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, they like that. They have that one in Vegas all the time, right?
They do.
That's their place.
I think they said they have a contract anyway through 24 with
Oh,
someone.
yeah. Well, they had everything was up in the air during the pandemic, but then they were like, as soon as we can get back on track, we will. Have you been to that
I've
one
never
before?
been to that one. I've not, so I'm excited about it.
I had a couple of friends go, and of course I'm in their Facebook group. So I'm not active there. I don't read that much there, but usually around the time when they're all talking about going to Vegas, I usually tune out because I'm not going to Vegas with them.
Right.
But there's always one of those risk reward things where it's like, do I go? Do I spend the money? What am I going to get out of it? And it just
Well,
seems like a more upbeat crowd than a lot
yeah.
of the other groups.
So I signed up 9 months ago before I realized that I would be a finalist for the Clive Cussler Award. And so then, of course, my husband, I was like, oh, hey, so we're going to Vegas twice in the fall, because I didn't know that I would, have that opportunity as well. But I'm looking forward to it.
Well,
so
it's a shorter trip for you. You're not necessarily going to drive, but it's, just
and I have to go to Florida in the meantime. So I'll be down there next week for a wedding. So
well, it's
yeah,
safe to come down here now. The hurricanes have moved on, so come on down.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
most of the places are, depending on where you got to go, most of the places are cleaned up.
Yeah, I was worried about my cousin's wedding in Longboat Key, but they say everything's fine there. So
Well, Longboat, that's in closer to the neck of the woods that got. I'm in Tampa, so and we're inland, so we, a couple of tree limbs fell and a bunch of leaves
Yes.
to rip up, and that's about it.
Well, they
Longboat
all,
is
I'll spend some time in Tampa too. My family's in Tampa, so
Longboat didn't get. They got the same stuff as us mostly, but
yeah,
being an island, they have the storm surge and all that. But
right.
the bad stuff happens south of them. So, and we all kind of spend 48 hours watching the radar perspective thing, and then we find out it's not coming here, and we're like, okay, party time.
Yeah, I'll use my time while I'm on the plane to write. I'm finding that I do a lot of writing on planes and I do a lot of writing in cars. So when my husband's driving, a lot of times I'm typing. When I'm driving, because we do a lot of deliveries in our ag business, I dictate into the notes section of my phone. That's how I find time to get the writing done. I probably wrote 18 chapters in this second Sadie book in the notes section of my phone. So
I do that a lot. People don't really understand the value of that, but for me, it's like you're away from the work, so you can relax. And when you're relaxing, ideas will come to you that solve little problems that you were dealing with. And then I'm like, I got the perfect thing. The butler did it, right? And then I'm like, how do I? You're not going to pull over and get a pencil and paper. You just grab the phone, just same as you, dictate in the notes, and then I email it to my computer so that if my phone gets stolen, it's not lost. And now, but that's what I do. And sometimes I will dictate, for lack of better phrasing, some dialogue or a good line that I think somebody should be saying. But I usually don't do it for scenes, but you'll dictate a scene too.
And I've gotten really good at open quote, commas, period. I mean, I can have a pretty clean copy as long as my phone says what I said.
Yeah.
Now, occasionally, I'll upload something into my manuscript and I'll say something like, your chariot awaits, and my phone decides to say your Cheerios await. But for the most part, it's fairly clean copy because I figured out how to do that. I can write entire chapters with punctuation and all of it. And I've trained my brain to do that.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's the point where I work with third and fourth graders to write stories that we publish, right? And a lot of times they're writing stuff on paper and pencil. I'd rather not look at it and type it. I'll just read it and dictate it, right? So often I'm sitting there saying, and then Sally said this, comma, quote, blah, 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 period, new line. Just use that. So when I'm sitting down, I have to read a passage of a book to somebody. It's like, you have to remember not to say all that stuff, like as you're just regular reading out loud.
Yes.
Normal people don't understand that level, but it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, or people still give you that weird look where you're like, yeah, comma, quote, blah, 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 period, new line, paragraph. And they're like, what are you doing? I was like, shh. Let me go on here, Just one of those.
Don't interrupt the process.
One of those weird things that authors do. But that's awesome that you can do scenes and chapters. I probably am capturing ideas that aren't going to be anywhere near fully formed. But yeah, I'm a big stick when I'm putting all the commas and periods and going back and saying, okay, Cheerios, what the heck? What audibly sounds like that phonetically that I can remember? I don't know, maybe it was a British guy coming and saying.
I have not had any trouble with that. When I go back, I'm like, oh, I know what I said there. And it's a pretty quick fix. It works for me. We're busy and I am dedicated to this writing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get my writing done. I'm going to get it out in the world. And that's how I can make it happen. if I'm writing over, my breakfast in the morning or while I'm driving, I'm writing every spare moment I have. I love football. When it goes to commercial break, I seriously am writing on commercial break.
What I find that when I'm writing, or sometimes even when I'm not, to take the break at the end of the day, I'm over there on the couch, maybe watching some old sitcom or whatever. I don't necessarily want to watch something that makes my brain continue to engage, because I'm kind of wanting to take a break. But then the first commercial comes around and I'm kind of like, usually I record stuff, so I'm fast forwarding over that. And as the show starts back up, I've daydreamed back off into whatever scene I was working on or whatever. And then the next thing, the show's over, my wife walks in, she goes, "Oh, what happened? Did they find the puppy?" I'm like, "I don't know, it wasn't really."
No idea.
She's like, "We'll replay it so we can find out what happened." I was like, "Yeah, I guess I could do that. I didn't really watch it." So when I'm working on a story, I kind of stay fixated on it. I guess it sounds like that's kind of how you do it too.
I do. Yep. The second book in the Sadie series, it did take me longer to write because it took quite a bit of research. The second one deals quite a bit with terrorism, and I had a lot of research to do to try to make sure I was accurately capturing that. I do worry occasionally that I'm on some CIA watch list because of the things that I've Googled.
We all are, all of us.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
how to hide a body, what acids will get rid of, fingernails.
Yes. Well, we own ag businesses and sells, chemical and fertilizer and things. And it's like in combination, the fact that I'm Googling something.
And plus with you flying all the time.
I'm on a list somewhere. Yes.
We're going to find out one day you're not allowed to fly anywhere, and you'll be wondering, well, this was not a surprise. We saw this coming.
Yes. Yep. I'm on the list.
No, it's funny that you mentioned that, and it's easy to go down a rabbit hole doing research, but it's because you want it accurate. Something as simple as I have Tampa detectives in one of my series. And so there's potentially going to be some shooting. So they check their guns to make sure, just, one last check to make sure they're loaded before we jump into this dangerous situation. And I'm like, well, crap. Now I got to see what kind of gun do they have? How do you check it to make sure it's loaded? It's not like one of those round barrels where in the old Western, pulls it out, there's 6 bullets, slap it back in, and let's go. Push this button, eject it, check it, slap it back in, click it into, which may take, sounds very simple. I explained it in like 30 seconds here. That might be an hour or two to find out.
I do know what
I used to use a Glock, now it uses a Ruger. But the beauty of the beta readers is I have a weapons nut kind of guy, and he'll tell me this doesn't really do that. It's like, well, tell me what it does do. And I have a nurse or a cardiac nurse, a couple of doctors who, when I have somebody doing something in a hospital, they're like, well, they're not called nurses when they're doing this. This person isn't called a nurse. This is a person called a whatever that person was called.
Right.
Okay, good. That's what you're here for. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I did. Some of the people that I met at the event this last weekend have some amazing and incredible experience and career work that lines up well with some of the things that happen in Sadie's book. So I'm hoping to maybe bounce some things off of them in the future. So
I asked them, I said, we mentioned about newsletters. So it's like every once in a while, I just got to email the people who are out there and say, here's how far we are. Here's what's going on. Or last, whatever it was, in August, I was talking about how I'm kind of behind schedule, but my daughter's playing softball this year. So we're going to games on Saturdays and we're not getting as much writing done. And not all, the ones that reply are like, enjoy life. She's only been young once. Go to those games.
Right.
To be honest, a hot dog at a ball game outside while your 12-year-old is up to that. That's good stuff. It's fun times. But so I asked them one time, I'm like, hey, there have been one or two of you who happen to be a nurse or happen to be this, that, or the other, who wrote back to me and said, hey, by the way, we would administer this drug, not this drug. Meanwhile, what did I do? I went on YouTube. I saw some TV show where they were doing something similar. I'm like, okay, well, they gave this, so many cc's, or if they're going to use what's the electrical thing where you shock somebody back to life?
Later.
Yeah. What they say when they're getting ready to do it. And so she writes me, she's like, well, it's really more like this. I said, okay, but I'm writing to people who aren't cardiac nurses. And so we got to balance that where it's similar, accurate, but similar enough to what they're used to where if I have it completely accurate and the readers think it's fake or incorrect, that's a bigger problem. And she goes, yeah, so what you said here is pretty good. Change this, because they don't care what the drug is, right?
Right.
Change this to this and this so many cc's down to that or whatever. And I was like, okay, good. Well, that's your job. So I wrote, like, in the next newsletter, I was like, hey, big thank you to so-and-so who cleaned up the scene. I showed her the before and after. I said, why don't you guys write back and tell me what professions you're in? And then when I have a legal dilemma for a character or, doctors, I got lawyers, doctors, I have a couple of military people. The one guy who's I call him a gun nut. His dad was a collector. And so he's kind of an enthusiast. I don't think he owns a lot of guns. He just knows a lot about them from his dad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the heck he does, but he reads over 100 books a year, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I know, that's crazy. Do you have people like that who said, oh, I love your books, I read 10 a month? Or
that's the one thing I've sacrificed with all this writing is I love to read, and I cannot possibly do my job during the day, get my writing done, and do my reading. I used to be that person.
I know a lot, 10 books a month or whatever.
Yes. I mean,
I was never that person. I could read a couple books a month.
The library MVP, I think. So, in fact, when I stopped going for a while, I think the librarians thought I had died or something because I was always in there. So, yeah, but
kind of a broken heart.
And I do.
But now you're on the shelves instead of in the aisles.
My local library has been so supportive. They're incredible people. In fact, they talked me into starting a writers group. I think there used to be one at our library years ago, and it had kind of fizzled out. And through all this process of writing and publishing, they said, hey, any chance you would come lead the writers group? I have made some incredible friends there. There's some amazing, talented people here locally, and I learned so much from them. We do prompts each month. It's 1,000-word story. That has been
short stories.
That's so good for me. I had never done that before. I've always done all these longer projects. It's good for me in two ways. Number one, I love being able to get a story finished when you're working on these longer projects and go, sense of accomplishment. I have something to
absolutely.
And two, my clarity and brevity has improved so much. I am very careful with word choice and saying as clearly as I can because I've been doing those prompts. And it's kind of fun how we do it. The very first day I went and I thought, well, we could do a prompt. I just took a piece of paper and I said, okay, name off five who's for the story. And people just threw out random suggestions. Okay, 5 what's for the story, random suggestions, 5 where's. And then I just tore those strips off and we drew the who, the what, and the where. We get some wacky prompts.
Oh, I bet.
It's fun. I mean, it's really challenging. The one I did recently was a cowboy goes to a funeral in an amusement park. It's like, how do you make that work? Well, we've done some interesting ones.
But that forces you to build up those creative muscles because you're never on your own probably gonna write about a cowboy going to a funeral at an amusement park. You're just not going to. Now that you're forced to, you have to make it work.
Yes, and I think that's improved my writing. So people who read kind of my beta readers for book 1 and now are reading book 2, they've said, man, they said book 2 is even better than book 1, and they said, you've improved so much. And I said, well, it's like a muscle, I said, I think writing the long projects has helped, but I said, also those short stories help me so much.
Short stories help. That's one of those tips for new authors. Don't be afraid to write short stories, especially if it's off your genre. Like if you write romance and your short story is going to be some kind of a horror or thriller or whatever. And we actually did that. I used to have a blog, and they suggested I have a writing contest, so we did, and that turned into a whole thing. But there was so many, so we took some of the stories, we put a prompt and said, this year's contest is going to be horror, and the theme is whatever, and then we would publish an anthology. Like I would pick all the winners, and then I'd publish those. And that actually, the lady we're going to have here on the podcast coming up, Heather Kent, actually went from where you were, where it's like the story was in the computer, and your mom's like, is that ever going to see the light of day? She won my contest. I didn't really know who she was at all, right? And now she's got, I don't know how many books out, between a half a dozen and a dozen,
Wow.
And I played a small role in, like your mom, elbowing, come on,
yeah,
let the story shine. But it was, so I write thrillers and murder mysteries, and the horror anthologies, the contest, which I would always contribute a story, were horror. So it's different, but it's not a completely different shade of the spectrum. It's like you're still trying to build tension, and you still have a certain pace and suspense and things. So, but it's different enough to where it forces you to think in different avenues and stuff, and to tighten things up. Short stories have to be pretty tight. Your novels, no doubt. So when you write short stories, is it just all kinds of bizarre topics, or is there kind of a theme to it?
Yeah, I've noticed that mine tend to be thriller types. So often the same prompt, someone else will come with something that's lighthearted, or we've got another lady who tends to write hers from maybe more of a YA kind of perspective, or even a children's type perspective, because that's what she's interested in writing. And so mine tend to be, the fast paced, someone's after, I tend to twist them into that, because that's what I've written with my Sadie book. Occasionally, it'll be a fun little lighthearted. One of them at Christmas was an orphan experiences a power outage at a hospital, and it was around Christmas, so I made it this heartwarming theme about this little boy getting adopted from spending his time at the hospital. And that one was a totally different type of story for me, and it was, when it was done, I was like, oh, it's like Hallmark or something. I mean, I've written something that was fun and different than I would normally do. But
see, and then here again, it's like in a lot of my stories there's a romantic subplot, right? So when I was starting out, I was in a critique group, and they were split up by genres. So I took my romantic scenes and I networked with some of the romance writers, and I said, hey, in my opinion, the whole story's got to be smooth and seamless. And I don't usually write romance, so I want your input on the romantic scenes to make sure that they're smooth and seamless, right? So we wrote, and I told the story before, but we ended up rewriting like one paragraph like 6 times so that it would be smooth and seamless, still deliver the subplot for the thriller, but also be what a romance scene needs to be. And that's what you can find that, okay, I wrote about this orphan. Well, now maybe in some future book, your main character is running into this other subplot situation or a complication of, I'm stuck with this kid. And because you wrote that earlier short story, you're like, hey, I learned some things about how to portray a younger person in one of these stories or whatever. So
I learned a lot from my writers group.
Do you figure you'll put those short stories out, the ones you've written, anytime, or is that going to be maybe something for a TikTok live or a website fodder?
Yeah, there's some fun little ones in there that I get done, I think that's a pretty good story. So I should do
material.
Yeah, yes, those are fun for me. So, and I do think that some of what I've learned from them, I'm starting to see that incorporated into my writing, like things that I pick up from, and like I said, some of them I don't think ever intend to publish. Like they just come for fun. They enjoy it. They like to write. They like to hang out with us. Talented people. And I learned so much from them. So and they're my friends. So, that's cool. We get to go hang out. And
I was thinking about that blog contest. It surprised me how good so many of the submissions were. And so I created, like first, second, third, but I did like 10 honorable mentions because there was just so many good stories. And it just was eye-opening. Same thing when I used to go to there was a Barnes and Noble that had and probably still does, I just don't go to it anymore, had a local writers alliance type thing. It was really interesting to see. You have a military guy writing a military story, and a lesbian writing a lesbian romance. This is not stuff that I would delve into, but it opens eyes to other avenues, because there's a variety of characters out there. So
yep, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned the romantic element in yours. That's one thing I was really pleased with in On the Run, is the chemistry I have between Sadie and someone she interacts with in there that becomes fairly important in the series. And that was fun. People have told me that I hit the chemistry there well, and that was my goal for that. So
I'll tell you what's funny about that. I think it was Dan Brown. I was listening to an interview or masterclass or something that he did. And he said, thriller writers are always interested in creating tension. He goes, one thing you can do is if you have these two people who have to work together, one's a male and one's a female, you immediately have tension, because a lot of your audience is saying, well, they're going to get together? Even though there's like nothing in
exactly. Yeah.
What was it? What was this big popular book called? It's slipped my head. Not Picasso, but what, Da Vinci.
Da Vinci Code.
But he said by having the male and female, he goes, there was automatically a lot of tension, because people were wondering if they were to get together. And it's true. So I wrote a story where I just did that just because he said that was a good thing to do. So in one of my medical thrillers, I have a man and a woman. They have banter. They don't necessarily like each other. They become friends, but there's nothing romantic happening with them. She's married and got kids, and he's kind of a lone wolf type. But a friend of mine on TikTok, I met through TikTok, was reviewing it. She goes, the whole time I'm not worried about where's the missing girl or this, that. I'm worried about, are these two going to get together? And I was like, that is so funny. Nailed it. Dan Brown was 100% correct on that.
That's why he's been so successful.
Dude knows what he's doing. So you're working on your second book. It's with Betas, you said, or?
Yep, it is.
All right. So you gonna have that out, and then you have the idea for the third book. Are you already writing the third book? Or
I
is the
have
rom-com gonna?
I have 3 chapters written in book 3, so
That's a great
and like
start.
it is. Yep. I'm excited about what's going to happen in book 3. It brings back in a really important character that I think maybe people didn't see quite as much of in book 2, and so now I've had this chance to bring that character back in book 3, and so I'm excited about that. I think a lot of people are going to appreciate that. So
Yeah, they like a tight-knit core group that they don't have to be in every book featured, but they kind of like to see their favorites come back. I can give you one piece of advice: don't kill off a favorite character. They tend not to like that very much.
yes, that will get people up in arms. Now you have to, in thrillers, you have to take them to the brink of that death to keep it exciting,
Yeah,
or bring
see,
them back.
that's why you're smarter than me, because I killed one off, and I'll tell you, from the book where that person's there to the book where the person's not there, there's such a huge drop off. And I was like, I may have killed the wrong character in that one.
Yeah. And I did. So I wrote book 1, and a friend bought it, and then she shared it with her aunt. And I was asking her, so what'd your aunt think of the book? And she said, well, she's really mad at you. And I said, what? Why? And she said, well, at the end, she said, you left it where something could happen in the future. And you left her wondering. And she said, I told her, book 2 is coming out, right? She said, okay, I'm not mad at her anymore. But she said that was her whole intent. She said, you wrap up most of what you need to in book 1, but you have to leave something hanging so that people want to read book 2.
So what you do is, instead of the little pre-order link at the end of the first book, you say, for more information on the next Sadie book, come to my website, join my
Yes.
readers club, and then
I do have that.
Oh, there'll be something more, maybe.
Yes, there's that. I have that excerpt. That's at the back. So
Yeah, you gotta have that. Well, if people want to know more about you and where to find you and all that, where should they go?
Yep, you can find me at authormirandacollins.com. I'm also author Miranda Collins on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and obviously my book is available on Amazon. It's On the Run, a Sadie Lynch novel. So those are ways that you could find out.
All kinds of interesting stories all kinds of interesting things happening in that story. Plus the second book coming out sometime in the next 90 days, sounds like. So we're all going to stay tuned for that. And when, if you were going to guess, when would the third book be released?
Yeah, I think I would probably shoot for a mid-year release on book 3, because I am really trying to pick up my pace, at which I get.
To write in the rom-com, you're going to get them both done in 9 months or whatever that is.
Yep, that's my goal. You're on that 20 books to 50K, and you read about people who are putting out like 10 or 12 books a year. I don't think I can ever get there, but I keep telling myself, if they do 10 or 12, I can surely do 2 or 3.
Well, I thought for sure when I sit down to write a book, I like save the files, so it's not hard for me to go back. I kind of throw them in a junk folder, right? It's not hard for me to go back and see when did I actually start writing, because all Word documents have a date on them, and it's like 6 weeks on the short end, maybe 8 or 9 weeks, maybe 10 weeks on the long end. So that's me, right? But that's physically writing it. How often am I sitting around for 30 days kicking around ideas and making notes about what I think should be in that story? Probably an extra month. And then after that, let it rest, rereading it, sending it out to betas, incorporating their notes. Now it stretches and stretches and stretches. But if I was more organized, I'm a pretty organized guy. Maybe if I was more ambitious, I would spend that 2.5 month thing and then mentally table it, start the next one, and then spend 1 week in there somewhere folding in the beta comments and then table it again. So I'm not, so it's not so in the forefront of my thoughts. And I could probably produce more. So I could probably produce 6 a year. But if I was trying to do 10, almost 1 a month,
I don't know that.
I think my quality would go down a lot. I would say if I could do 6, I would be very tired. But like learning how to run a marathon or climb a mountain, you build those muscles. So by the time I got to book 3 or 4, I'd be more able to write 6 books a year than I was when I started book 1 that year, let's say, if that makes sense. But 10, like, first of all, I don't know. There are people who read, 10 books a month. So if I could write 10 a year, it still wouldn't be enough for them. But I don't think the quality of the product would be there at that point.
No, I never. That's never going to be a goal for me, because I know I could not put out quality products at that
It's scary,
pace.
isn't it? Do you even say anything? a book every single month. I'm like, man, it's like, oh, I don't even want to think about doing that. That's no, that
Yeah,
yeah.
2 or 3 a year is going to stretch me. But of course, like I said, I'm still, we're very, very busy in our ag businesses and things. So I'm not doing it full time. But
Well, that's the difference right there. Yeah, if you're doing it full time, things would change. But if you're not, getting 2 books out a year is huge. And most authors don't do that. Most authors are more like 1 a year.
right.
All right. So we've got all your information. Amazon.com to go buy the book On the Run right there behind her. You can see the poster. And Miranda, it was great having you with us today. We look forward
Thanks.
to having you back again sometime.
Sounds good. It was good visiting with you. Bye.